It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, and we are back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew a deck for you, my version 1.0 deck list of the deck in front of me on my quest to out-brew your favorite Magic channel. This week is the first week of March of the Machines. I said that I'm so excited to brew around. There's so many great commanders. There's so many great new cards to use. And I think this is the first set in a while that I've been like super stoked to brew around. There's been so many fun things to come down the horizon, and there's so many things to try out. Well, friends, every set, there's always a commander that during spoiler season I look at it and go, that's what I need in my life. Now, this is kind of funny because when you see this episode, the last episode on this channel should have been that. Right, it's an upgrade to one of my favorite decks in my collection, and so that should be it. But it actually wasn't, because we saw that card very late in Commanders in the spoiler season. But the card we saw very early in the spoiler season was Ghalta and Mavren, and specifically, this was the first version of this card that I saw, and I immediately said, "Wait, what's Ghalta and Mavren? And two, what is this frame?" Right? So Ghalta and Mavren, 3 green, green, white, white, 7 mana, 12/12. Friends, 7 mana, 12/12. Trample whenever you attack, choose one. Create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur creature token with trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures. Or create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Well, let's answer the first question. This is a showcase frame, and this is the future showcase frame for Lost Caverns of Ixalan, the Ixalan set that's coming out either at the end of this year or early next year. So that's that. 2, what is Ghalta and Mavren? Well, March of the Machines has shown us what the community is referring to as team-ups, of course, based on what Pokemon did the last year or so with putting cards together, or characters together on the same card and calling them team-ups. So we're calling these team-ups. This is 2 legendary creatures or creatures fighting together, coming together for the purposes of fighting the Phyrexian. And this card's a lot. I think in a lot of ways, this card would be literally fantastic in any green-white X creature deck that cares about big things. This is great in a dinosaur deck. This is great in big mana decks. This is a great card in its own right. But the reason I looked at this card was I have Jetmir, right? And Jetmir is a deck I absolutely love. It's fast, it's aggressive, it beats people over the head. It's a deck that I truly enjoy because once you get to 9 creatures, you just nuke games, and it's a ton of fun. But what I really wanted for a while was just a green-white tokens list, a go wide, have fun green-white tokens list that isn't based on having a mini critter hoof out of the command zone or a certain number of tokens, but just going wide, building up that value, protecting that value, and just stomping over our opponents. And I think Ghalta and Mavren is that exactly for that first ability. Create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur with trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures. Well, if Ghalta and Mavren's attacking, that's a 12/12. But otherwise, it's just massive. And the great thing here is we're playing token doublers, right? We just got Mondrak and Phyrexian 1. We have other token doublers. So the more we choose the more of those we have, the more of those XXs we get. And then remember, friends, when you create a tap and attacking token, you don't have to play for Ghostly Prison. It gets around crawl space. It gets around a lot of those reduction effects for how many creatures that can attack you or whatever things you're doing. So this is great because we can get around those Ghostly Prisons and those propagandas and those crawl spaces in the more casual games and just slam through. So green-white tokens, friends, let's get into it. I think a pretty basic mana base. We're playing Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, because we're playing Nissa, Synod Animist as a finisher. We'll talk about that when we get up top. Nykthos, I think, is one of those lands in this deck that's probably going to end up being better than we think it is. No, the tokens don't have Devotion, so that won't count for Nykthos. But we're playing so many permanents that I think Nykthos is going to end up being a great land for us. We're playing the Broker's Hideout and the Cabaret Courtyard just because they gain us a teeny bit of life and they help filter our deck. So I think that's pretty great. Campy Vista, of course, we're playing lots of basics, so that's going to come in untapped. All right, well, let's get to the nitty-gritty of the deck and the enchantments. My favorite part of it, most token decks, are the enchantments that we get to play. And sadly, some of my favorite enchantments in token decks are red. So unfortunately, we don't get the Impact Tremors, we don't get the Roar of Resistances, we don't get those great red token enchantments. What we do get is a lot. Anointed Procession, doubling the amount of tokens we make under our control. Doubling Season, doubling the amount of tokens that are our control. Parallel Lives, doubling the amount of tokens we do. made on the battlefield we control. That's 3 enchantments, and we'll talk about Mondrak when we get up top. So that's at minimum 4 ways to double the amount of tokens we control. Beastmaster Ascension will end us games. Whenever a creature attacks, we put a counter on it. When it has 7 or more counters, creatures get a flat +5/+5. This will end us a game eventually. Whether we give our creatures trample or not, we're going to end up having enough creatures that are going to be big enough that this is going to either force our opponents to take terrible blocks, or it's just going to end the game outright. Cathar's Crusade, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It gets out of hand. It gets out of hand when you have so many creatures, and it's certainly going to do a lot at any of the game. Concordant Crossroads, I think at the end of the day, we need a haste enabler somewhere in this deck. We're going to be making so many tokens and going wide. We need some way to end the game, and I think Concordant Crossroads is one of those ways. Cryptolitherite, creatures we control have tap, add a mana of any color to your mana pool. This works great with Concordant Crossroads because we can tap them down right away. Or we can use the tokens we made last turn to help us make a spell this turn or get more tokens this turn. Love Cryptolitherite, and it's a card that comes in a lot of handy. Divine Visitation, this is the perfect deck for Divine Visitation. Whenever we would create tokens would be created, we get that many 4/4 angels with flying and vigilance instead. The downside of this is this Bascultin Mavren is kind of a non-bow, but if you think about it, what we could do is if we truly had this down and we had Ghalta down, we just pick the second ability and get that many 4/4 angels. Yes, we lose the top ability, but I think that's worth it because if you think about it, there's so many other ways to create tokens, and all of those tokens are going to come down as 4/4 angels. Druid's Repository is a card that I'm trying a little bit more in some of my newer decks because I think it's going to end up leading to better play overall. This is whenever a creature you control attacks, you put a charge counter on it, and then remove a charge counter from it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Of course, Doubling Season can double the amount of counters, so it gets doubled on that as well. But remove a counter from it, add a mana of color to any mana pool. This is great because it could potentially open up a situation where we full out attack, get a bunch of counters on it, and then use that for interaction, use that for protection, use that for a lot of things. So I really like Druid's Repository, and I'm excited to see how it works in a deck like this. Feldar Retreat, 2/2 Cat Beast, or a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control, and they get Vigilance. I forget all the time about they gain Vigilance until end of turn. I think that makes Feldar Retreat so much better. Not only do you get the option for the token, but you get an option for just straight Vigilance for something you're trying to do every turn anyway. Garruk's Uprising, coming in for the trample, drawing us that card if we control a creature power 4 greater or 1 comes in. This is great with Divine Visitation because we're just going to draw a ton of cards. Tangible Virtue, creature tokens we control get +1/+1 in Vigilance, going to help us attack and block. Luminarch Ascension, one of my favorite token producing enchantments. Beginning of each opponent's end step, if we didn't lose life, it gets a counter, and then as soon as we have 4 counters, we can make angels for 2 mana, and we would want to do it so bad. This works so well with Druid's Repository, it works so well with Cryptolitherite, it works so well with creatures with Vigilance, because at the end of your opponent's turns, you just dump a ton of it into making angels, and then those angels can attack on your turn. Mirari's Wake, love this card so much. Getting double the mana from any land you produce is great. And then the flat +1/+1 ain't bad either. We talked about Parallel Lives, doubling our tokens. Rabble Rousing is probably one of the best enchantments in this deck because you just don't realize how much value this darn thing produces. Hideaway 5, so when it comes down, look at the top 5, exile 1 underneath it. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, create that many 1/1 white and green citizen creature tokens. So I think the best part about Rabble Rousing off the top is you attack with your board, you get that many 1/1s to block, minus any other buffs that we have. And then if you control 10 or more creatures, you just play the thing for free. But the greatest part about this is we full out attack. We get all the benefit of attacking. We have all these 1/1s to block, and then we are now not worried, right? Because we just got it all replaced. Smothering Tide, of course, going to get us that value. Summon Library, of course, going to get us that draw value, and then Wild Growth, just a little bit more ramp, especially in that early game. All right, getting into the artifacts, and this is where I think we're gonna have some fun. Arcane Signet, of course, the classic, getting us to that color. Halo Fountain is a win con, but mainly I think its top 2 abilities are just really good. White, untap a tap creature you control, get a 1/1 citizen. Well, this is great because if we have any of the doublers out, we're getting 2 or 4 or what have you. 2 white, untap 2 tap creatures you control, and draw a card. Now remember, friends, that's untap a tap creature. That's not tap an untap creature. We're actually gaining the benefit because now we're gaining blockers by doing this, and then untap 15 tap creatures to control, win the game. I mean, I don't expect Halo Fountain to win us the game very often, but it is an option for how wide we go. The other cool part about this is with this and Cryptolitherite, or with this and some of the things that tap our creatures, we could potentially do this on our turn. Like, we don't necessarily have to do this on our opponent's turns. Like, we could do this after we attack or things like that. Horn of Valhalla, Comes in and makes X soldier tokens on the adventure side, and then we can give in a creature +1/+1 for each creature we control. This is probably good on Ghalta and Mavren because this could potentially be end a game with commander damage. It's already a 12/12. It's going to be pretty easy to just end the game with commander damage because Ghalta is just going to be big enough. Phyrexian Altar letting us sacrifice our creatures for mana. This is important because there might come a situation where we need Teferi's Protection or we need to do something else, and we're just going to need to sack the creatures for it. Scepter of Celebration is a card I'm excited for this deck because it's in Jetmir, but it doesn't really get a lot of love in that deck because of how fast it is. A creature gets +2/+0 and trample. Whenever it deals damage to a player, create that many 1/1 citizen creature tokens. This is great because with Cryptolith Rite or with some of these spells, we're going to try to convoke out. That's more creatures that allow us to do that. Skull Clam, letting us draw off of our 1/1 Soul Ring, of course. The staple, the card that everybody wants. Strixhaven Stadium, another win con, where a creature we control deals combat damage to a opponent, we put a point counter on it. And then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove all of them, and that player loses the game. Super great, another win con, and we'll probably end up sneaking our way in. Throne of the God-Pharaoh is a card that I'm really excited about because I think it's going to catch a lot of people off guard. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tap creatures you control. The wider we go, the more we attack, the more this card is going to hurt. And the Christmas Land scenario is you attack, people block as much as they can, but a bunch of your guys still get through, and at the end of your end step, you have 12 or 13 untapped creatures, or tapped creatures, and now your opponents are just losing 13, right? So there's a big upside to Throne of the God-Pharaoh, more than I think people realize. Thunderhawk Gunship, when it comes in, we get 2 warrior creature tokens. But it says whenever it attacks, tagging creatures you control gain flying until a turn. Well, here's a way to end the game. Right? Because if our opponents don't have flying, all of our 1/1s now have flying and are probably just going to end the game in their own right. Thunderhawk Gunship's a card that, to me, every time I read it, I wonder how it exists. Yes, it is 6 mana, and that's a decent amount to get down. I don't think we care. The more doublers we out, the better it comes on the front side. It's a 6/6 blocker, but then it attacks. Everything else gets flying, and that's pretty great. Now, remember the other good part about Thunderhawk Gunship, most experienced players won't fall into this trap, but I just want to make sure you're aware. Once that trigger goes on the stack, friends, even if you remove Thunderhawk Gunship, that trigger stays there. Things get flying. So you have to remove Gunship before it attacks. You have all those times, right? You have the end of the main, if it's not it needs to be a creature, right? Or that's when most people are going to make it a creature. You have start of combat, and then you have the end, and then of course once we go into declare attackers, that's flying. So be very careful with a card like this. Whenever it attacks trigger, you need to do it before they declare the attack. And then Wand of the World Soul. This is from the Convoke deck. I was kind of intrigued to see what that Convoke deck would do for white, because so many of these white token decks are in white, right? Well, I love Wand of the World Soul. It says when it comes, it just comes in tapped and you add it for a white. I really don't care about that at all. What I care about is that last ability. The next spell you cast this turn as Convoke. Friends, we're going to have way too many creatures on the battlefield. And convoking out a spell like Secure the Wastes or Grand Crescendo for as much as we want it to be, because we have Convoke, is going to be massive. March of the Multitudes, Clever Concealment, which already has Convoke, so it's a bad example, but Flawless Maneuver, Heroic Intervention, just being able to convoke these if we need to, because we're all tapped out, is going to be a huge, massive upside. My other favorite about this is I can get it with Enlightened Tutor. Yes, there's other things I'd want to get with Enlightened Tutor, but I could get this with Enlightened Tutor, which makes me really happy. So let's get into the instance. Beast Within. We need removal, so we need to play it. We're also playing swords, but at the end of the day, I'm really just trying to go wide. I'm trying to have some fun. Clever Concealment, any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out, can protect us from a lot of board wipes, mainly from Farewell, from that new Sun Bond card. Those are the things that we're trying to protect from. We have all this protection for board wipes, but for Farewell, Cyclonic Rift, those type of things, we really need this type of thing to phase things out. I think that's why Teferi's Protection and Clever Concealment are good. Now, Teferi's Protection only blocks us from Cyclonic Rift because it phases them out. If it was just us that got protection, our creatures would still come back to our hand because Cyclonic Rift doesn't target. But the good part there is everything faces out so that we don't have to worry about it coming back to our hand. Because remember, as soon as the token leaves the battlefield, it's gone. Crop Rotation, mainly here for Yavimaya. For when we see Nissa, but it's also here for Nykthos as well. Like, there's a couple of those utility lands that get really good. Eladamri's Call, getting a creature card of our choice, and there's a lot of them in the deck we really like, but it's probably going to be Mondrak most of the time. Enlightened Tutor, again, any enchantment or any artifact, lots of choices depending on what we need. I like Wand of the World Soul, of course, because it's a great card. I like Druid's Repository. I like Annoy Procession. There's a bunch of cards with this that we could get. Flawless Maneuver. If we control Ghalta and Mavren, we can cast it for free. Creatures we control get indestructible. Grand Crescendo, create X green-white green and white citizen creature tokens, then creatures we control gain indestructible to the turn. Again, a way to protect the board. Heroic Intervention, flat hexproof, indestructible. March of the Machines. March of the Machines. March of the Multitudes, wow. One of my favorite token producers, because it has Convoke naturally on it. Create 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. So if our creatures have vigilance, we've already attacked on that last opponent's end step. We just go deep into a March of the Multitudes, make 12, 15, whatever tokens. Then we can attack with them the next turn. Second harvest for each token you control. Put a token that's on the battlefield that's copy that permanent. The more doublers we have, the more we're going to make with that. And hopefully we have the Concordant Crossroads or some way to give them all haste. Secure the waste, X white, make X tokens at instant speed. Love this. This is a spell that I would want to convoke as well with Wand of the World Soul. Swords for some removal. And then Teferi's Pro. All right, getting into our sorceries. Cultivate, Farseek, Rampant Growth, Nature's Lore. 3 visits for ramp. Awaken the Woods is not only a token producer, but it is a ramp as well, because it makes forest tokens. Love Awaken the Woods. Another spell I want to convoke as well, if possible. Hour of Reckoning, convoke, destroy all non-token creatures. This kind of stinks because we probably don't want to destroy our non-token creatures, but I think it's a small price to pay for destroying everybody else's creatures and leaving all of our tokens if need be. And then Martial Coup, making us tokens, and if it's 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So this plus a protection spell could potentially lead to a pretty big swing for us. And then Triumph, because again, at the end of the day, we have to end the game. We can go as wide as we want. We can be as cheeky as we want. We can make as many tokens as we want. But in the day, we have to end the game. I know that it gets talked about oddly in the community about wanting to end the game, but at the end of the day, we have to end the game eventually. We can't just dump things on the battlefield, because eventually our board's going to get removed. People are going to deal with us eventually. We're not going to be able to just make 30 tokens, and people are going to go, "Hey, look, tokens!" Like at the end of the day, we have to end the game. And I think Triumph does a really good job at that. Okay, we'll go over the Planeswalkers first, and then we'll talk about the creatures. Elspeth, Sun's Champion. That +1 gives us 3 soldiers, -3 destroy all creatures of power 4 or greater, and then -7. Creatures we control get +2/+2 and flying. So we need to take up Elspeth 3 times, or only twice if we have Doubling Season out. And now, if Doubling Season is out, she can come out and ultimate right away. But otherwise, we do need to +1 her up, get those soldier tokens, which is great. And those soldier tokens are going to be helpful for us. And then Nissa, Animated Animist, Ascended Animist. +1 gets us that big token. The best part there is that the more doublers we have, the more of those tokens we get. -1 to destroy an artifact or enchantment, and then -7 to give everything a +1/+1 for each force we control and gain trample. This could help us with that. If we don't see the Garruk's Uprising or things like that, this is going to help us push through for game, as well as this is what we really want that Yavimaya for. But also this works really great with Awaken the Woods, right? Because the Awaken the Woods makes those Forest Dryad creature tokens. All right. The deck originally started out with like probably 30 of these like classic Selesnya token enchantments or token commanders or legendary creatures. But I wanted to kind of focus more on the other stuff that can make tokens and not just individual creatures. But these were the kind of all-stars, the things that I thought fit the deck best for their value. Adeline making a 1/1 that attacks each opponent is just killer good, especially especially when it gets around crawl space, it gets around ghostly person, it gets around propaganda, and depending on how big those are, depending on how many buffs we have, those could be 4/4s, that could be 5/5s going at our opponents, and that's pretty great. Best Soul Nourisher is probably one of my favorite of the commanders, alternate commanders in this deck, because it's so good. Whenever one or more creatures you control with base power 1/1 enter the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Best. And then whenever it attacks, each other creature you control with base power and toughness 1/1 gets +X/+X until the turn, where X is the number of 1/1 counters in it. Most of the tokens we're making are 1/1s. Remember, friends, this is base power and toughness 1/1. It doesn't say 1/1. So the best part about that is if we have a flat buff like Intangible Virtue or some of these other buffs that we have, they're still going to get the bonus because they're base toughness 1/1. And that's what I really like about this card. I think it works really well. Champion of Lambhole, one of our other win cons. Creatures with power less than it cannot block creatures we control. And whenever their creature comes to the battlefield, this gets a +1/+1 counter. The bigger this gets, the more it just ends games. When people can't block, our tokens are going to be wide and tall enough that they're just going to end the game. Craterhoof, again, we have to end the game. And I don't mind Craterhoof being the reason we end the game, especially with how wide we're going to go. It doesn't give haste, unfortunately, but for any creature that can attack, it's just going to get good. We're playing Elishnor in the original. This card spent a little bit of time in Jetty, but it never ended up working out the way I wanted to. 7 mana, all of our creatures get +2/+2. All of our opponent's creatures get -2/-2. This is just going to be the thing that helps us end the game. And we can also convoke this out with Wand of the World Soul if possible. King Darien, other creatures get +1/+1, 5 mana to make a 1/1 and put a counter on it, and then we can sacrifice to give all of our tokens hexproof indestructible. Love it because, again, it's just another way to protect our board. Maya, Guard Protector, other creatures we control get +1/+1. When a land comes in, we get a 1/1. Pretty great. Again, just ways to protect our tokens, make more tokens. Mondrag, doubling the amount of tokens we would make. And we just need to sacrifice 2 other creatures and pay 1 mana to make it indestructible. And then it's a pretty cool card in its own right. Again, it's a 4/4. It's not a bad body, but it's that doubling of the tokens that we really care about. Mural, Shield of Argive, going to hopefully shut off our opponents on our turn. And then whenever it attacks, we make X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens where X is the number of soldiers you control. We have a couple cards that make soldier tokens as well. So like, so that's going to be great because that means we do have a chance to get some more that way. A couple of our regular creatures are soldiers. But the big thing here is this and like Champion Lambhold probably work pretty well together because we declare the attack, Mural makes some tokens, and that may potentially put us over the threshold for our opponents not be able to block. So I love that. The other thing I love about Champion Lambhold is with Rabble Rousing, you're probably going to end up making your opponents able to block. So let's say we attack with 6 creatures in Champion Lambhold, trigger goes on the stack, makes 6 1/1s, Champion Lambhold now goes up 6 +1/+1 counters, and now your opponents may not even be able to block because that interaction. Queen Alanol, one of my favorites, did a deck tech not too long ago on the channel for this one. It's power and toughness equal to the number of creatures we control, and then if one of our creature tokens will be created under control, those many tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. This is another great target for like Scepter of Celebration because it's just going to get bigger, and it's going to be pretty big. The great part here is this star. So if we have 9 creatures, this is a 9/9, not like a 9/2 or a 9/3. So that's what I really like about Queen Alanol. It's just 3 mana, comes down early, gives us those extra tokens, but then it starts coming attacking threat. Scooot Swarm, everybody loves Scooty. It does a great job. Gets you those extra 1/1s. And again, their base power and toughness is 1/1 insect. So again, works well for Bess, works well for all these other things. And then Tendershoot Dryad, I wanted a card that could be a little bit of a value engine on its own, and I think Tendershoot Dryad does that. At the beginning of each upkeep, you make a 1/1 sapling, so that's everyone's turn, and then if we have 10 or more permanents, all those saplings get +2/+2. So worst case scenario, we're just getting 1/1s for the purposes of Bess and a lot of other things, but the top end is then all of our saplings turn into 3/3s, which hopefully with Trampler and these other buffs become harder to deal with. What do you guys think of my Ghalta and Mavren deck? This, just like the episode we did on Monday with Goreclaw, is going to be a deck that I can't wait to test myself. This is something that it's going to go get proxied right away. It's going to get right into the test box, get right into getting tested because, like I said, as much as I love Jetmir, Jetmir is an aggressive tokens deck. This is a go wide tokens deck. And of course, the more cards we get for tokens, the better this deck gets over time. I always try my best. I don't know what you guys think of this. You can tell me down in the comments if you do the same. Lately, I've been trying to build my decks in a way that they get to get added to over time. Decks that can get support from anywhere or anything, as opposed to being just so pigeonholed in one strategy or one thing. So, green-white tokens as a strategy that's always going to get some love no matter where we go. Heck, in a lot of ways, Nissa is not a card you would consider to be a green-white token staple, but it works so well for this deck. We got to see so many. I mean, you look at right here, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards in just the last 3 sets. So you could see how much just a set or two can change a deck or help a deck. And so I'm really excited for that. Friends, let me know what you think down in the comments about Ghalta and Mavren. This is probably not the best Ghalta and Mavren deck you're going to see, but I think this is the best way to start testing, and I would love to update this deck in maybe a month or 2 once we start testing it out and seeing how the deck does, and you guys can tell me what you think of it then. Like the video if you like Ghalta or Mavren, or you like them together. You love seeing the house on the back of that dino. Subscribe if you want to join me on my quest to outbrew your favorite Magic channel, and I will catch you guys next time.